Hi, my name is Ted Svikas, and today I'll be presenting on a modern customer data center of excellence. We'll walk through a presentation where we'll look at the scope of customer data and how it specifically plays out in digital marketing strategies for which it's intended for. Then we'll take a look at some of the event architecture that is a part of this modern data movement. And then last, we'll take a look at some of the organization structures that you can use in your organization to deploy a data center of excellence. So let's get started. Let's talk about the scope first of what we're dealing with in a data center of excellence. In modern times, we have customer-centric approaches happening all over. You've heard the acronyms Customer 360, the single point of view. But at the end of the day, what this is all about is focusing on customer lifetime value in today's competitive marketplace. We're looking to drive revenue on both sides of the bow tie funnel, so to speak. It's not just about acquisition, nurture, conversion anymore, which happens on the left of this funnel. But once the consumer makes a commitment to the brand, that's where the real revenue and operational savings come in, especially with regards to loyalty and recommendation strategies that we're seeing today on all the devices in the omni-channel. So it's all about placing the customer in the middle, and customer data flows from the left to the right and back and forth in a concentric motion. These are some of the more popular use cases that customer data centers of excellence are going to be serving. And on the left-hand side, again, the left side of the bow tie funnel, we have the first CRO, the conversion rate optimization section. And here's where customer data will be used for acquisition marketing, awareness, interest, and consideration. The idea behind this is to drive the consumer to our owned and operated properties. And there's a variety of ways that we can do this. Lead gen tools, ABM tools, search and ad tech for acquisition, even data clean rooms that are sprouting up nowadays have the ability to compare first-party data sets with each other to understand your cohorts and bring them to owned and operated properties. As you might have guessed, zero-party data, getting information in a consentful manner is key to this approach in the acquisition phase, because getting that data right in the beginning fuels everything that as it moves to the left. So retargeting, personalization, both known and unknown, is what's going to take place in the beginning of the funnel. Once that happens and the conversion takes place in the center, you can see use cases that deal with analytics, incrementality, customer experience. They become front and center for your brand, because now you're not only working with your customers who are known to you and who have already purchased, but you're thinking ahead and you're going to the right side of this slide, where the second CRO, customer retention optimization strategies, will take place. So the customer data that you've consentfully required on the left is now being put to use in the right to drive new use cases, preventing churn or lapse, getting involved in loyalty programs, which are very popular today. Essentially, you're connecting your customers to new experiences with your brand, making recommendations. And that drives new use cases such as lookalike modeling that you can, again, use in data clean rooms or retail media networks. And in fairly contextual advertising that we're seeing nowadays with, for example, Google Topics is all the rage because it now has machine learning that understands what the intent and affinity of unknown consumers are on the open web. So we're seeing a lot of play from the two CROs, and all of them depend on a single stream of data to power it. So now let's go into the section of strategy and design. We'll talk about what events are in the world of customer data and look at some strategies in order to automate it. Let's level set first on the difference between data and information. And so many organizations will be keen to this, because for the last 20 years, it's been nothing but funneling and fire hosing data to a cloud storage server and paying for data you probably don't even use. Nowadays, we can't do that anymore. We can't just place data and take ownership and stewardship of it. There could be liability attached with new privacy laws. But that's a good thing, because data in its rawest form really has no meaning, has no context. It's when we turn that data into information. So instead of having just a simple order ID, real-time marketing or retargeting using JavaScript tags based on simple pieces of data. We want to be more thoughtful with this data and enrich it and form profiles and audiences and draw conclusions about behavioral data. And that's what information event data is. You can see the difference between, wanting to own data and wanting to own information. But nowadays, we don't have a choice. Privacy regulations have made the distinction between data and information very, very profound for companies. So this is what a modern event infrastructure will look like in the customer data lifecycle. On the left, your consumers, their devices, their real-time engagement. Instead of just funneling that to a data lake or a warehouse right off the bat, you now govern the event data as it forms on those devices. You make decisions using software such as Tilium IQ Tag Management or Tilium Event Stream to decide what is meaningful to the business. What do we want to pay for in order to acquire that data, and what do we want to ask our consumers consent for? And so we're not just randomly pushing data into a database any longer. We're actually governing that decision on the device prior to it entering the organization. That's the key change in today's times in digital marketing, having that event infrastructure there. And so what you have in the center is a customer data platform. And this will be the first touch of that data as it comes into the organization, where we do take ownership of it. We do promise good stewardship of it. And many departments in our brand, in our organization will make use of this data. So data science teams, digital marketing, ad tech, analytics, they can all benefit from this new approach to governing data at the source, deciding what comes into the CDP, and then on the right-hand side, automate the distribution of this data to the different departments and brands, or different departments in the organization that need it. Whether it's legal teams, the IT department with EDWs and data lakes, data science, or digital marketing and ad tech. All of them benefit from that single customer view. So let's go through the 3 stages of how to actually automate this movement of event data that's being produced on devices that we want to own, we want to put to use. Phase 1 out of 3 is automating your data collection strategy. So this isn't about buying data from third-party sources and storing it somewhere. This is actually first-party activity that you're detecting on your website, on your app as a brand. And so you use tools like tag management systems and real-time APIs that activate on the cloud, a hybrid approach. Both are still in play and both need to be used. Of course, the loss of third-party cookies have made the notion of using cloud-based server-side tagging more proficient for most of us. We're still going to be collecting cookies and so forth using tag management systems. So you need both of these working in tandem. Once you automate that, you pick up the consent in real time, you can actually interact. And going back to that use case slide that you saw, the first CRO on the left, these are the tools that make all of that possible. Being able to bring data that you're collecting on devices directly to the multi-channel on the right that you see here, so we can advertise and do analytics and so forth. So all of that is possible with a data collection strategy run by these 2 tools. The next phase is where the fun stuff starts. Instead of just reacting in the moment, taking that event data and placing it into a customer data platform. There's a big difference between the data in a CDP and the data that you've collected on these devices. Whereas event data is temporal, it has a limited time to capture and take action on. The data in the CDP is profile data, it's audience data. This is the kind of data that evolves over time and is meant to. And so you'll get new data attributes forming in the CDP based on collection of events over time. So now we can measure things like historical affinity and intent and create new cohorts and new profiles based on those behavioral insights that we've looked at. Typically, a CDP will involve RFM strategies, recency, frequency, monetization, always knowing where your customers stand in that life cycle and what the best decision for their experience will be is key to the value of a CDP. And remember, all of this is automated. We can do a lot of this RFM analysis today using business intelligence tools and analytics tools, but the difference here with a CDP is that it's actionable and it happens immediately. And so stitching up the data here helps bring benefits downstream to the technologies that use them. And once again, the data collected on customer data is going to be very useful for data science teams as they bring forth new ML techniques and new AI techniques to help with the customer experience and service. All of this is tied together under, you see in the blue boxes, an identity key ring. And this is the core feature of any CDP. When a customer data initiative starts, the first question you have to ask is, how do we identify this data? That is the one link together. And so a deterministic identity strategy is the very first identity strategy that will be dealt with. You will use other techniques like probabilistic in the future, but for now, understanding who's out there, identifying them with consent and tying that consent to the identity is absolutely important, because in the future, there's going to be use cases for data subject access requests. The right to access, the right to erasure, and the right to modification are all powered by your identity strategy. So that is key. And so a good CDP will incorporate a automated deterministic identity keyring and always keep that active so that you can do cross-device detection, cross-session detection, and so forth. So the CDP really is that second phase of the customer data initiative. And once again, it's the same multi-channel on the right. We're now collecting data from our owned and operated properties, marketing to the consumer, retargeting, doing lookalike modeling on DSPs, also, using the event data that we've gained to do attribution measurements with some of the more popular APIs from Meta, from Google, from Snap, and so forth. It's not to say that it's just about digital marketing. These first-party profiles based on RFM metrics, going straight to the call center to help with the customer experience when support is required, and also to the modern clean room environments that we have today that help us expand our brand's reach. Instead of just advertising on owned and operated, you can see your consumers and your prospects on other retail media networks that are becoming very, very popular today. So the key to all of this is to have your customer data strategy in the data center of excellence contain both the event data, the data that you capture in real time, as well as the profile and audience data. That's the scope of a customer data center of excellence and what you should be focusing on to begin with. And the last phase is actually just continuing to evolve the customer data platform, continuing to use incoming events, making new profiles and audiences, but really expanding your use cases. Instead of just owned and operated properties on the left, we now have expanded the omni-channel to include data that we get from cloud storage like Snowflake or Databricks or AWS, new identity profiles and new acquisition data sets that we may purchase through companies like Merkle. And Google BigQuery is being another big area for attribution, having that closed circle. The events are coming in not just from your website and app, but from an entire omni-channel of IT. And so you drag and drop new data sources on the left, and that powers the customer data profiles that you have in the middle. So now we can do use cases that are very important. For example, experimentation strategies are much better served with a single customer view. A/B testing and personalization absolutely needs to have the current state of the customer. That's what the CDP does. And that's what happens when your data center of excellence has that kind of data in the middle. But it's not just limited to that. We'll be doing marketing and ad tech, serving legal teams. Like we said before, the data science initiatives can use this kind of data. Again, same multi-channel on the right, except this time we have a much more robust customer omni-channel on the left serving that. So the single customer view not only takes place when customers engage, but it could have data in other places that can help with our cohort and our segmentation to serve the multi-channel. So this is the final phase of that three-phase approach in your strategy, which ultimately makes data delivered as a service to your organization. So let's go into the data center of excellence itself and see what it looks like now that we've got our strategy in place and we know the scope of the data that we're working with. On the right, you can see a typical modern model for a data center of excellence. And this is something that I've seen more so than any other structure, but there is no right or wrong answer here. How organizations choose to run the CoE is completely up to them, but typically the chief data officer holds the authority in the operation of the Center of Excellence and delivers services to the back office as well as the front office. So it's not only about digital marketing and helping out sales and customer service, it's also about synchronizing that data throughout the entire organization in the back office so that legal teams, BI teams, and IT teams are all reading off the same script, the same blueprint of data, helping the CDO manage the three-pronged approach of any CoE is people, process, and technology. And so the people that work in the Data Center of Excellence will know how to use a CDP and administer it and take service requests from the back and the front office to form new audiences according to their requirements, to form new attributes that are meaningful for digital marketers as well as analytics. And of course, the CoE may or may not have internal project managers, data source engineers that help out with the architecture themselves, or they may choose to borrow from IT, so to speak, to get this job done. But at the end of the day, both Telium technology and the upstream downstream technology platforms that I've seen are all in scope of this delivery. So you're not only running tag management systems in a data center of excellence, you're also running and being aware of the new APIs that are forming to help deliver on some of these requirements. So it's a big job, and it's centralizing it makes a lot of sense. If you don't do it this way, you're going to have the same titles that you see in the middle have to populate in each of these business units. So there really isn't a choice. We have to centralize these efforts, not only for economies of scale, but also for efficiency purposes. And so the modern data center of excellence will look something like this. All the process has been centralized in the center. The chief data officer will have people management, policies, and strategies to be aware of. It's a big job. It involves a lot of training and certification to keep up to date on the latest privacy laws, the latest APIs that serve those laws efficiently. All the new tech, it seems like every quarter we get some exciting new technology to work with that increases our digital marketing reach and efficiency. And of course, the chief data officer will have at his or her disposal the tools and the platforms, the reporting, the insights that make a lot of sense. Everyone's going to want reports on their data throughout the organization that is meaningful to them. And so that single customer view approach will serve both digital marketing objectives on the left and digital marketing outcomes on the right. It brings together the people, the process, and the tech that's needed to run this in a cohesive fashion. And the last slide that we have here is about our data governance and how it will look like once the data center of excellence is complete. This is very similar to the last slides that you saw before with the 3 different phases, but this is one for the CFO of the organization. If you have the ability to track data on any device, unify it on the left during your collection, you've standardized it along the way, you've brought in consent, you've served your event infrastructure to all of the omni-channel. They're all going off the same data layer, the same blueprint. You can actually meter this data, right? So you're going to know exactly how much data is coming into the middle as it transforms and enriches. This is where in the center, the CDP, you take stewardship of this data and you know exactly where it came from, the entire lineage, what its value is, because you're looking at CLTV strategies, right? And then, of course, you're using that data to synchronize the warehouse you see south of that circle in the center, the lakes, the lake houses, machine learning, data science platforms, etc. So the entire focus of customer data is to understand and balance the cost of owning this data, both from a legal perspective as well as a revenue perspective. And when you do something like that, you can actually implement chargeback models like you see at the bottom. For example, a shared collection chargeback model is now possible. If we're collecting data from the website, all the departments that the chief data officer is linked to, such as sales, customer success, product, etc., are going to share in the cost of that because it serves them all. So we get to install once, and then we can understand the scope of who's getting this data that you see on the right when we choose to activate it. We can also go with a semi-shared enrichment chargeback model. For example, digital marketing teams might want more context about the single customer data set that you have in the center. They would want affinity and intent attached to it, but that's not necessarily something that data scientists might want, or the back office people might want. So we can actually share the cost of the single customer view, but then understand all the different data points that serve different departments. They can pay for that as they require. And so all this comes in contract with the tools that are serving your data. You get charged by the events that come into the customer data platform, and only those events, only those profiles. So you're not getting data that isn't meaningful to the business. And ultimately, the last aspect of the chargeback model is pay-per-use activation. We see this in the trends of composability architectures built today. You drag and drop which APIs you want to connect to your CDP for a specific reason, for a specific use case. It leads to some kind of revenue outcome or operational savings outcome. And so every time you use that API, it's being metered inside the CDP, and you can see which departments have more use of that activation than others. And so putting it all together, when you sign a contract for a CDP and pay the costs of it, you should see value in the 3, 4, 5x range as you're constantly reusing these profiles over and over again, and you can actually trace their lineage right back to their origin. The moment that you decided to take ownership of it will be the moment that you can understand who should be paying for this data. So true data governance made available not only because of CDPs like Telium, but the way that the industry has structured itself to interoperate on the cloud with services. And so we're going to see a lot of these composable techniques being brought into the mix with the Center of Excellence. And because of that, you'll be able to design a very good chargeback model that makes the costs of operating a data center of excellence very, very clear. All right, so that's the end of the presentation. I hope that was helpful and interesting for all of you. What's next for us? Join us on February 16th for Telium's masterclass, how to establish customer trust through data privacy. A lot of the topics that we talked about today, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I hope to see you all there, and thank you very much for watching this presentation.